He is back, everybody. My co-host, Mr. Roden, is back in the booth just in time for another loaded Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast episode. What is Mr. DeAngelo doing? And we're taking a look at all the wild card teams on the bubble. Big time bets. Let's break it all down on Thursday's episode. Thank you for joining us.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. The dynamic duo is whole once again, and fear not, Steele is here to support us through all of the fantasy takes. You know I can't do it by myself, people, and he is back fresh off a Vegas heater and making some money. You know that's good for big-time bets, so we want to hear what he's got to say, and you know he's always been hard on Mr. John Tortorella, so we're going to talk about this Tony DeAngelo situation, and I want to hear your comments on Torts' comments or lack of them as well. Cam Talbot injured as well once again. And perhaps more importantly on today's show, it's time to take a look specifically at these wildcard teams on the bubble, because actually taking a look at both conferences, Steele, yes, we know the East up top pretty solidified, but that wildcard race is open in the East and it's wide open in the West. So let's talk about it. We're going to get there. Why don't we kick it off with DeAngelo before we even get to Talbot, which obviously has more fantasy impact. That spear to the groin of Corey Perry, and we know Corey Perry's a bit of a greasy player at times, but I wouldn't call him dirty. I'm going to call Tony DeAngelo a dirty player who has a track record. Spearing a guy in his groin is, for me, right up there with spitting or any other dirty pool. And I actually am intrigued to hear what you have to say, because 2 games for DeAngelo today. You're going to have to fill in this hole for him if you have him. But what do you think about this overall, Steele? He does forfeit also $54K in salary.
Yeah, on a Vegas heater, I'm trying to catch up on all this hockey news. I looked at the situation last night between Tony DeAngelo, Corey Perry, Philadelphia Flyers, and Tampa Bay Lightning game. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Lightning getting a little bit grittier as they were on a little bit of a losing streak as well. So it was a fiery game between those two clubs.
Yes.
And like you said, we're talking about Corey Perry. He's no saint himself. He loves to talk. He loves to chirp. He gets under people's skin. He gets under players' skin. And that's exactly what he does here. I don't know if Tony DeAngelo was meaning to go straight to that area. Maybe he was looking for a little bit higher. There was a lot of referees and players there, but he still shouldn't have done it. I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do, but both these guys have a little bit of a fiery edge to their game. Tony DeAngelo a little bit more. And I actually, all things considered with how I actually feel about John Tortorella, I'd like to hear what you have to say too. But what I heard from him in the post-game interview was Tony DeAngelo, from John Tortorella, is Tony DeAngelo plays a very fine line. And he thinks that he's done a pretty good job this entire season at staying behind that line and not crossing it as much as he should or could possibly have. He thinks that he also said that he probably did cross the line in this situation, but he's loved the way that DeAngelo has played this year. I like the way that DeAngelo has played this year as well, but
me too.
What he did here to Corey Perry is obviously a spear right to the groin, 2-game suspension, probably could have got one more, to be honest, but these are 2 guys that just play a little bit on the edge, and when they start chirping each other, something's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. And I think actually you bring up exactly what Tortorella said. And this is what kind of gets me, Steele. And this is why I think you and I are on the same page when it comes to our opinion on John Tortorella. He may have crossed the line. It looks like he crossed the line. The man clearly went for Corey Perry's family jewels with an aggressive play that double circle if Tampa Bay meets Philly at any time down the stretch. Corey Perry's going to be coming for blood if that's the case. I don't know if they are. But fantasy-wise, Tony DeAngelo is relevant, especially as a blue liner who brings points. 15 penalty minutes last night, but more importantly, 15 power play points this season. He brings a little bit of value, and actually, because he can be a bit of a hothead and bring the penalty minutes, going into that game, he already had 52 on the season. For a guy who has 30 plus points as a blue liner, to me, Steele, That's almost a banger league beauty blue liner, a good keeper dynasty piece. But look, a guy who has had off ice issues and issues between the ears, clearly with some of the decision making skills. He has figured it out quite a bit this year. But hey, you're going to have to fill that hole over the next couple of days for DeAngelo. To me, John Tortorella, complete cop out. Your player was caught doing something dirty. It wasn't maybe, it didn't seem to be. You know what he did, and just man up and call him out for it, because that's what that kind of play, in my opinion, deserves. That doesn't have any place in hockey or pro sports. But what does is, Steele, if you don't mind, holy crap, Cam Talbot is out again. This is your boy a little bit. Hit me with your take on, we'll get to the Ottawa Senators at the wild card discussion. We're going to get to the bubble teams, but maybe just hit me with your impact on Cam Talbot's value and what you think he might hold now, 3 weeks on the shelf, lower body injury. What is this, his third time on IR?
Yeah, this is his third time on the IR. I actually think he's probably done for the rest of the season. I don't know if he actually comes back after this. And the funny thing is when you sent that message to me earlier talking about some fantasy hockey X factors in the wild card position, that was the guy that I had highlighted for the Ottawa Senators, was Cam Talbot needs to be the X factor. Now, I'm not so sure Ottawa, again, it's a long shot for the Senators. We're going to talk about it later in this episode, but after this injury, significant injury again to their starting goaltender, I don't know if you can rely on Mads Søgaard to continue playing at his. It's a big if right there. So, this is a tough injury, especially for guys who have Cam Talbot on their fantasy team, including me. I have Cam Talbot on my team. I'm not making the playoffs at this point, so it doesn't really matter in that one fantasy league. But for other guys who have Cam Talbot and who have struggled with goaltenders all season long, he was just what was his record the last 5 games or 3 games? He's been playing really good hockey. I'm trying to get back in the swing of things.
I got you right here, bro. No problem.
Now, but Cam Talbot,
he's 4-1. 4-1 over his
last 5 games. He's got an over 915 or 920 save percentage in that time as well. He's been playing great hockey since kind of getting back in the swing of things. And now he goes down to injury again for the 3rd time this season, out for longer than 3 weeks at a time. So it's definitely the worst time for the Ottawa Senators to lose their starting goaltender. And they got to rely on 2 young guys now to get the job done. So it's very tough news for the Senators and very tough news for fantasy owners out there.
It really is, Steele, because also I don't think, in the past when Anton Forsberg went out and we knew Cam Talbot was going to be the option getting run out there, we were confident going out there and saying, this is a guy that you need to go out there and add. I don't think I have the cojones to go out there and tell you to pick up my boy Kevin Mandolese, or even though Mads Søgaard has been pretty good this season, actually very good, 6-4-1, 902 save percentage, very good for a 22-year-old guy, 6'7" goalie who has 9 total games in the NHL. Steele, this is just a nightmare season for this Senators team on the ice in terms of injuries and that kind of a thing, because they have proven that they have what it takes offensively. They bring in a beautiful piece with Chychrun. He's already started to pay off, and then boom, you got to go back to 2 AHL goalies. This is going to be interesting. Let's talk about it for the wild card implications coming up right around the break. We got X factors. We got predictions. We're going to talk about who we think is in and who is out. And you know where you can make all of those kinds of bets, because we're going to get to big time bets as well. It's at FanDuel Sportsbook. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the midway of the NBA season, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your bet doesn't bang. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers to threes drained. We like to build those same game parlays to combine your bets for a bigger payout with that FanDuel same game parlay. And you can bet on the tip, first to 20, first to 30, who hits a triple double, who hits a double double, and everything in between. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love, all the support. Flip.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
That's the juice. Yeah, that's the juiciness in the NHL right now. This wild card race is absolutely unbelievable. 6 teams battling for those last 2 spots. Obviously, the top 3 teams in the Metro and the Atlantic Division are set in stone. Nothing's changing. Maybe a couple of interchanges in second and third at the end of the season, but it's going to be those top 3 teams in those divisions.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, in the Eastern Conference, in wild card 1 position, we've got the Islanders at 74 points. Number 2 position for the wild card, Penguins at 73 points. Mm-hmm. Then on the cusp, on the outside, trying to get in, Panthers at 70 points, Senators at 68 points, Sabres at 68 points, and the Capitals at 68 points. Mm-hmm. This race has been pretty much crazy since the beginning of the season in the Eastern Conference. I want to throw it over to you and get some X factors from these teams. What do you think is how it's gonna finish like at the end of the season? Do you think this is how it ends, or are some of those teams on the outside, are they gonna be able to get in at the end?
See, here's the thing, Steele, because we know how wide open that West is in terms of even the top 3 spots in each division. And I think we'll get to that. And I'll talk about what I think might shuffle around a little bit there. You mentioned it, though. The top 3 are the top 3 in both of these divisions, unless something really out of left field happens, which I don't think it will. But where it is going to get wild, in the wild card, that's bad. Teams in this list here, 1 through 7, Islanders, Pittsburgh, Florida, Ottawa, Buffalo, Washington, and Detroit, all separated by 9 points. And I'm not saying Detroit catches the Islanders. But why not Buffalo catching Pittsburgh? To me, the Islanders are in there because out of all of those teams, they have the best goalie in Sorokin. That's my opinion there. But after that, the Florida Panthers have played really good hockey, Steele. And sometimes when a goalie goes on a little bit of heater, like Sergei Bobrovsky's doing, turning back the clock, now all of a sudden when I look at Darcy Kemper, a little iffy. He's my X factor for Washington. He needs to be a lot better and steal some games. So there's an early X factor for me. But when I look at those teams, Florida, Ottawa, Buffalo, there's just no goaltending there. So someone's going to have to really step up goaltending-wise, Steele. So to me, to answer it very quickly, I see the Islanders in number 1. And right now, given Cam Talbot's injury out, because I would have probably slotted in the Senators there, and now I'm very concerned. I'm going to say Florida Panthers with Sergei Bobrovsky. I'm going to take him over the aging Craig Anderson. I'm going to take him over Darcy Kemper, and I'm going to take him over Mads Sogard. Maybe Tristan Jarry plays good. I'm rambling because Jarry is my X factor for the Penguins. But I'm going to say Islanders 1, Panthers 2. That's where I'm at right now as of today.
And that's the thing. These teams are so close right now that we're just having our opinion right now. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season. So I can't disagree with that too much. I'm with you, though. I have the Islanders in that wild card 1 position.
Me too.
I'm going to leave it as it is. I think the 8 teams that are in the playoffs right now, if the playoffs started tomorrow, are going to be the 8 teams at the end of the season. I have the Islanders in the wild card 1 position, and I have the Penguins at the wild card 2 position. And exactly for the reason what you said. And as entertaining as the playoff race has been, and I see it finishing with the 8 teams who are currently in a playoff spot. Whether Pittsburgh finishes above Islanders or, behind Islanders, I'm not sure yet. But to me, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders have the more reliable goaltending as well as the more reliable defenseman. And that's what it comes down to for me. And again, my X factors are pretty much the same. My Florida X factor, it needs to be Sergei Bobrovsky. He needs to stand on his head and steal those games.
Or maybe Ekblad. That was my other one because he could be huge defensively.
Or the defenseman.
So,
I did have Cam Talbot as an X factor, but now that he's out for the next 3 weeks, I think it has to be the Senators defenseman. They have to do Chikrin, Shabbat, Artem Zub. They need to do everything possible to clear those pucks in front of their goaltenders. And then for me, the Washington Capitals, it needs to be Alex Ovechkin. They need goal scoring ability. They need goal scoring right now. They're letting a ton of goals in, but they need to score more goals than their opponents. So it needs to be Ovechkin and their top guys on the front line.
Yeah.
Again, I'm looking at some of these odds to miss and make the playoffs right now.
Yes,
the Panthers
Steele.
are minus 160 to miss the playoffs. I think that's a very good bet. I don't see it happening for them this season. As much as we thought they were going to be in the playoffs before, back in October and September, I just don't think that's the case anymore. I think they're struggling with goaltenders. I think they've struggled defensively a lot at times. And when it comes down to it, I believe more in the Penguins' offensive abilities, as well as Tristan Jarry, and then the Islanders' defensive abilities and Ilya Sorokin. So I've got the Islanders and Penguins. I don't think anything changes, although it will come down to the wire, and it's going to be a very entertaining race.
That is a definite fact. And the other thing I just wanted to say about the Pittsburgh Penguins, because I'm with you, I think, this 3-point bump that they have right now on Florida, plus 2 games in hand those 2 games in hand might be the defining factor there. My thing is Pittsburgh's just really average at everything. Yeah. Goals against, they're right there in the middle. At least the Florida Panthers score some goals. Pittsburgh is 15th in goals for, 15th in goals against. They're just very average to me. They're sitting right there in the middle of the pack. So I wanted to say that. And very quickly, I wanted to get off perhaps my favorite X factor of my list here, because we're talking playoff X factors for the stretch run X factors. We're talking about these wild card spots, people, and we're going to get to big time bets. But for me, you mentioned how good the Islanders defense is and the goaltending, right? So to me, the X factor has to come up front, and it's got to come from a guy in Anders Lee who has been getting it done for this team. When he's hot, and he's starting to score some goals. He's up there to almost 25 again. To me, it's going to have to be a leader like Anders Lee to really take the reins offensively and do something up front. Obviously, Horvat's going to do his thing. But anyway, why don't we
I do want to say, one last thing before we shift over to the Western Conference. On top of what we both just said in the Eastern, I was looking at the remaining schedules. The Senators have the second hardest remaining schedule in the league. The Sabres have the 5th, and the Capitals have the 9th. So 3 of those teams in the Eastern Conference trying to battle for a wild card spot are top 10 in the hardest remaining schedules for the remainder of the season. I believe, off the top of my head, the Florida Panthers are 17th. They've got the 17th hardest. The Penguins are the Panthers have the 19th hardest. The Penguins have the 17th hardest, and then the Islanders have the 24th hardest. So also, when you include that into everything we've said about the defensive capabilities of the Islanders and the offensive capabilities of the Penguins that at times they can show, I think the schedule really does matter. And at this stretch of the season, easier opponents you have, it's going to come easier. So it's going to come down to the wire, but the teams in the wild card spot, they're going to be there at the end of the season.
I'm with you. You're very, very good point on the strength of schedule. That is obviously important. And, I hope you did a little bit of digging on the Western Conference teams as well, Steele, because this is where, I don't know, you and I, for the most part, we usually agree. I don't know if you're going to like my takes here, though. And let me just start in the Central Division, because I think now, when we're looking at the wild card, Edmonton in 1 with 78 points. Winnipeg at 2 with 75, and Calgary in 3, 71, and then down we go to Nashville. Obviously, the Blues are out of it. So we got Nashville, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Edmonton currently lurking around for those spots. Before we get to the Pacific, I'm not buying into the Dallas Stars, Steele. I'm not buying into it for – I'm just – look, and I'm sure Dallas Stars fans will go, Guy, they're in first place. They have a plus 44 goal differential. That leads – does that lead the Western Conference? It leads the Western Conference. You take away 2 players from this team. 2. Named Jake Ottinger and Jason Robertson, Steele. Where are these guys at? Seriously. That's where I'm at. So I think this Central Division shuffles. And I know you're going to like this take, because what I've seen from the Minnesota Wild over the last 10 games, 8-0-2. This division, in my opinion, belongs to the Wild right now, and they're playing like it. They make a couple of good deadline moves. I like Klingberg's already looking good on the blue line in Minnesota. I think it goes Minnesota 1, Colorado 2, And I think a wild card team like the Winnipeg Jets slides into that third spot, and Dallas becomes the top wild card spot, and things get a little crazy, Steele. What's your take on that?
All right. So with that being said, I think we're definitely going to have a little bit of disagreement on the Pacific Division then, based off of what you just said. But I do agree with you for the Central. I think the top two teams are obviously Colorado and Minnesota. Whoever's first, I don't know. I hope it's Minnesota, and I think it will be. But the top two teams in the Central will be Colorado and Minnesota. I agree with you. I think the Dallas Stars are going to start sliding because that's typically what they do at the second half of the season. They struggle scoring more goals than their opponents. They start to slide down. I think they slide down to either the third spot in the Central or even down to a wild card spot. Yeah. But because the Stars also have the fifth easiest schedule remaining. They got a very easy schedule moving forward.
That's good to know.
So for me, that plays a part into what goes on next. I also see in the Pacific Division, I think the top three teams is what we get. It's going to be the Vegas Golden Knights, the LA Kings, and the Seattle Kraken. I think those are the top three teams in the Pacific Division, which leaves the Edmonton Oilers, the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames, and the Nashville Predators. Those are the teams right now. So the teams that are fighting for a spot. I actually believe that the Winnipeg Jets are not going to make the playoffs. I think they continue to slide down. They haven't played great in their last 10 games. They've lost to a couple of bad 2-6-2. They've played bad against some teams.
Yes, they have.
The Calgary Flames. I actually believe the Calgary Flames.
Oh my goodness. The
Calgary Flames have the easiest remaining schedule. They only do have 17 games left in the season, but they have the easiest remaining schedule. They play the Ducks 3 times. They play the Sharks twice, the Canucks twice, the Arizona Coyotes once, the Columbus Blue Jackets once. Obviously, they play a couple of hard teams in there as well, but we know they can battle against some hard teams. They've got the easiest schedule remaining in the NHL. That plays a part. The Predators also have the 6th hardest schedule remaining, and they have the most games remaining as well. They have 21 games left on their schedule. I think it's going to come down to the wire for the Predators, but I don't think it's going to be their season in the postseason. I have the Winnipeg Jets just missing the playoffs and the Flames just squeaking in based off of how easy the Calgary Flames schedule moving forward is. And for fantasy X factors, I think for the Flames, it has to be Tyler Toffoli. He's been leading the team. He's been leading the team all season. He's over 200 shots, 55 points on the season. I think it goes down to him as well as whoever's in net between Vladar and Markstrom. And then for the Dallas Stars, just to remain in the postseason, I think it comes down to that third line. Going out there and acquiring Max Domi. You've got Max Domi, Mason Marchment, and Tyler Seguin as your third line.
Did you listen to yesterday's episode?
I did listen to that episode, Cliff. I'm shouting you out right now. But that third line looks really good.
It does.
It's 2 games. It's a small sample size. But that looks like a very, very good third line for the Dallas Stars.
I like the X factor.
I think the Stars fall down to a wild card spot, or the Stars fall down to a third or a wild card spot. But that's what it's going to be. I think the Flames squeak in.
Okay, these are bold takes, and this is why I like having you back on the show, brother. And if you don't mind, let's go to break, and I'll quickly hit you with my take on what I think is going to happen in this Pacific Division, and then big time bets right after we're done that.
Big time bets coming up very, very soon. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Hit the sub button, hit the follow button. We record Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the mornings, when you can find all the episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. And Flip, before I do throw it back over to you, one last thing here. The Flames are plus 120 to make the playoffs, and the Jets are plus 175 to miss the playoffs.
Whoa.
So there's some good money. There's some good odds right there. The Flames got the easiest schedule. The Jets are like 16th or 15th in the middle of the pack for the hardest, but that's what I like right there. So I might actually I might bet on the Flames to make the postseason.
Hey, for the odds, I'm not going to disagree with you. I just don't see it because of what I'm going to explain next. And my wild card team, Steele, are the Dallas Stars at 1 and the Seattle Kraken at 2. And
Okay,
I
yeah.
have come on here and spoke a lot about the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm sticking to my guns because now what I'm starting to see from Stuart Skinner, what I'm starting to see from Evan Bouchard, they get themselves a shutdown D-men. My X factor for this team, though, you can't go to the top two guys. That's not even fair. And
No.
Stuart Skinner is too obvious of a take because someone's going to have to make a save. To me, it's the guy who's had a really good 2 years in Edmonton, and it's Zach Hyman. And he's
Yeah.
that playoff type gritty guy who's going to get you a big time goal. He's going to smash around a couple of bodies and change the pace of games. And for me, Zach Hyman is a must target fantasy piece down the stretch. He's my X factor. I see the Oilers squeak in there on the back of some better play from Stuart Skinner, but that's a big if. That's just my take. I say Calgary misses out. I think the Central goes Minnesota, Colorado, and then Winnipeg. But you're right, Steele. The Winnipeg Jets have shown no indication over the last 10 games, especially losing to the San Jose Sharks the other night. A
Yeah.
3-2. It was hard for me to watch as a guy who had Winnipeg in a parlay as well. Thanks a lot, Kyle Connor. Got to do better. He's my X factor for the Winnipeg Jets, a guy who started the season on a house of fire, and now he's cooled a little bit. He is my X factor for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think, Steele, that Central Division is where you got to keep your eye on because you could get some good odds right now for maybe Minnesota to take the division. Only 2 points back, 8-0-2. And Philip Gustafson is starting to really impress me. You and I have talked about him at length, but if you need to go out there in some maybe not so deep leagues and get yourself some Philip Gustafson action down the stretch here.
Look, at the time, I wasn't too happy about the trade for Philip Gustafson and Cam Talbot, but now I'm absolutely loving it.
How
It
things
is
have
the
changed.
best trade. Bill Guerin is an absolute genius.
Stud. Yep.
Absolute stud. Let's get over to big time bets. Wrap up
Been a
this
while.
episode with a little bit of a bow. I'll start off. This one's the easy one for me. There's a lot of games out there. This is one of those nights that I wasn't really like.
game board.
Yeah, to me the matchups weren't that thrilling. There's not a matchup that really sticks out potentially as like a. Anyway, first bet of the night: Predators on the money line -172 against the Arizona Coyotes. Like I said, the Predators are on the cusp. They're looking to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a hard schedule remaining.
Yes.
They've got a hard schedule remaining. The sixth hardest schedule remaining with 21 games left in the season, the most games left in the NHL. But it starts off tonight against the Coyotes, an easy team. So they got to win it. -172. That's my first pick. Second pick, I'm going to take the Avalanche on the puck line against the LA Kings.
Whoa.
+146. A 6-0 blowout the other night against, the San Jose Sharks. I know it was a very bad team they played against, but nonetheless.
6-0 San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, 6-0. I'm going to continue to bet on the Avalanche because Nathan McKinnon, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Rantanen, Georgiev, they're loving life right now as they're getting fully healthy. Avalanche on the puck line. And then my lock of the night, I'm looking towards that Islanders-Penguins game under 6.5 for my lock of the night. You could even go down to even under 5.5, which at under 5.5 is +114. I might throw it up to under 6.5, which is probably around -100 or something along those lines. But nonetheless, take the under in the Islanders-Penguins game. That is my lock of the night.
Absolutely love that lock of the night. That is my second pick, Steele. The Islanders and Pittsburgh Penguins, the head-to-head might not indicate that it's going to go under the number because I believe, actually, looking at this, 4 of the last 5 games between these two teams has gone over the number, but the Islanders play stingy D. The Pittsburgh Penguins have a lot on the line here, and this is a battle between the two wildcard teams going toe-to-toe for those spots. And the time is running out on both of these teams to make a move in terms of standings. And I think you're going to just see playoff atmosphere from start to finish. Jari stands on his head. My boy Ilya stands on his head. I'm just going to start saying Ilya now because I butcher Sorokin every time with the R. But it's an under for me as well, Steele. And very quickly, though, to talk to your Colorado Avalanche point, I saw something here about the Avalanche that I think you're going to like. As much as the puck line is bold for me, Colorado Avalanche have points in 10 of 10 games against the LA Kings, including 9 wins out of their last 10 games. So
I just knew.
I'm here for it, but the Kings have also wins in 4 straight. So I'm a little wary of that puck line, but hey, that's your thing, pal, and I'm with it. If you're okay, I had 4 picks on my card tonight because
Love it.
I was liking 2 totals. So we know I like the under in that Pittsburgh New York Islanders game. And when I look at this Vegas Tampa Bay game, it's also screaming playoff atmosphere. It's screaming Aiden Hill's been playing pretty good. The Tampa Bay Lightning have responded now finally with a big win after actually playing embarrassing hockey.
Yeah.
And I think they actually Andrei Vasilevsky steps up in a big way. This number's at 6.5. I'm liking it under. Yes, I know, loaded with offense, Tampa Bay. This is another one, Steele, that I'm going to play my gut on the playoff type atmosphere. For me, that means under. So that's another one of my picks. Parlay them all together and thank me later. My third pick, not my last before I get to my lock. We did an episode, Steele, I think right before the half, about big time second half players, big time breakouts or something like that. And I pegged Sebastian Aho as one of those guys. And he's been so-so. He has 55 points. I know his career high last year, 83 a few years ago. He's not going to hit 80 points, but I think this is a big spot for Aho to break out a little bit, Steele. Philadelphia Flyers, they have the issues going on with DeAngelo, maybe some distractions here. And when I dig into the splits for Mr. Sebastian Aho in his career against the Philadelphia Flyers, 23 career regular season games, 10 goals, 13 assists, and a point per game player. Give me the Sebastian Aho. Anytime point. And because Aho went pointless in his last 2 games, you're probably going to get a really good odd.
Yeah.
A good one to parlay anyway. And lastly, a team that I was saying that I'm not really fully buying into, but I'm buying into them tonight, Steele, because looking at the head-to-heads, they have won 8 of their last 9 games against the Sabres, and the Sabres are the team I'm perhaps believing in the least out of all the wild card teams we talked about, and that's just because they're just not there yet. They have the stars. They have the offensive talent galore. Jack Quinn, Paterka, up and down the lineup, even guys like Middlestad in the bottom 6. Defensively, not there. Goaltenders, not there. And as much as I think the Dallas Stars fluctuate around, Buffalo has been struggling to score goals over their last few games. So I just see this team, when they struggle to score, Steele, they lose. Dallas, money line, lock of the night, on the road, getting a good odd, minus 145. I say Stars, big time bang out against the Sabres, struggling to score.
I like the Stars. I like your lock of the night as well. I like all of your picks, actually. I might take the under in the Tampa Bay Vegas game, throw that into a parlay myself.
Why not?
I like the lock of the night. I like the picks. Hopefully you guys out there as well like the picks and make some money with us this week. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out Game to Game. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On hosts can deliver. Thank you again for tuning in to today's podcast with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.